Jordan and Israel about to make peace. King Hussein has no patience for people who criticize the deal. President Assad of Syria, as you know, is quite critical of the lease-back arrangement you've reached with the Israelis. What do you tell him?
I tell him it's none of his business, with all due respect.
And President Clinton and the Republicans fighting about budget cuts and taxes 2 weeks before the elections.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Reporting tonight from Jordan.
Good evening from the Middle East, where history will be made again this week. President Clinton will leave for the region tomorrow, and he will bear witness to the peace agreement between Jordan and Israel, which will end 46 years of hostility. There's a great flurry of activity here in the Jordanian capital this week. This is their first presidential visit in 20 years, and given the fact that the occasion is peace, this is surely one of the most important weeks in this small nation's history. Our first report tonight is from Israel, where peace and the recent terrorism has left the country in a pretty ambiguous state. Here's ABC's Dean Reynolds.
In Hebron on the West Bank today, a show of bravado by Palestinians opposed to the peace process. This kind of display is not new here, but Hebron is a stronghold of the militant Muslim group Hamas. The Israeli government's fear is that Hamas may attempt some spectacular act of terrorism to coincide with the presidential visit. And so all Israeli police leave time for 21,000 men has been canceled this week, and soldiers in the West Bank are on a heightened state of alert. Israeli forces detained dozens of Hamas members in the last 48 hours, and the Israeli news media said Prime Minister Rabin issued shoot-to-kill orders against leaders of the organization.
We should take any actions against those terrible murderers.
The latest leaflet from Hamas promises reprisals for any Israeli moves against the organization. Rabin's threats don't frighten us, it said. He should know that Hamas loves death more than he and his soldiers love life. In the Israeli Knesset this evening, the Prime Minister survived a vote of no confidence, but his political opponents were not giving up.
The government is to blame for having made easier an atmosphere of projecting Israel's weakness.
Polls say that assessment is growing among the public, and now government officials acknowledge that for political reasons, the peace process with the Palestinians might have to be halted unless Hamas is stopped. Dean Reynolds, ABC News, Jerusalem.
Here in Jordan today, the entire focus of public life is on the future without Israel as an enemy. It may be hard for Americans to understand at such a distance what a psychological leap this is, from so much war and bitterness and even hatred to the notion of cooperation and even partnership. There are certainly people here who think it's a mistake to become friends with their Israeli neighbors. More than 50% of the population is originally Palestinian. They have lost their original homes to the Israelis and have no hope of getting them back. Today, at Jordan University, a demonstration against the peace agreement. There is fear here that whereas Israel has dominated Jordan militarily, Israel with U.S. support will throw its weight around in the future and dominate the country economically. But for King Hussein and many other Jordanians, this is still seen as a crowning achievement. No other leader in the Middle East has had to maneuver through so many crises. His kingdom, which has only been independent since World War II, has been caught geographically and politically between Israel, Syria, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. Jordan has fought 3 wars with the Israelis. The West Bank of the Jordan River was lost forever in the 1967 war, and the king has since given up his claim. In the 1948 war and again in 1967, Palestinians either fleeing from or being driven from their homes by the Israelis have ended up here. In the late 1960s, when Palestinian militias had free reign in Jordan, the king came very close to losing his throne. In 1970, however, he finally allowed his army to fight, and during the civil war that Black September, the Palestinians were militarily defeated. The future in Jordan will be a challenge for other reasons. A serious shortage of water. Because Israel and Syria have long made it difficult for Jordan to share fairly in the waters of the Jordan River and the Yarmouk, Jordan has on occasion been pushed to the brink of social and economic unrest. This is a poor agricultural country with a growing demand for water. Universally, Jordanians hope that peace with Israel will mean better economic times, but there is a need for major international assistance. The U.S. has said it will now do more. Jordan has always had to struggle economically. It has virtually no natural resources and nothing of value to export. And so Jordan relies on antiquity. This is Jerash, one of the best preserved Roman ruins anywhere east of the Mediterranean. And nothing pleases Jordanians more than to see it crowded with tourists.
Elle relie la place ovale avec la porte nord.
Se extiende una nación.
There is even some fear here that the country will be overrun by Israelis, among others, eager to see the ancient sites. From Jerash in the north to Aqaba, with sun and sand on the sea in the south, Jordan relies on tourism. This has long been a popular stop on Holy Land tours, and with the frontier open now, Jerusalem is only an hour and a half away by car. Jordan's jewel is Petra, once the capital of an empire, carved in the sandstone 6 centuries before Christ was born. But back to the future. King Hussein hopes that Jordan's national parliament will be an example for the Arab world's tomorrows. The king has carefully welcomed even Islamic hardliners into the democratic experiment, and whatever the trend toward Muslim militancy elsewhere in the region, Jordan has reason to be guardedly optimistic. In fact, tonight the king and his accomplished American-born queen are positively high about the peace agreement which will be signed on Wednesday. We talked to the king today about Muslim extremism, about his disagreement with his neighbors, the Syrians, and why did it take so long for a peace agreement to be signed? We'll have much of that conversation at the end of the broadcast. But first we go to New York, where Diane Sawyer has the day's other news. Diane?
Peter, in a moment, the political news. President Clinton out campaigning, attacking the Republicans, defending his record. And a new report on a strangely sloppy spy.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, brought to you by AT&T.
In political news today, some hot words on the economy. President Clinton and the Republicans traded charges over who was most likely to cut Social Security and raise taxes. Mr. Clinton was in Ohio. Here's ABC's Britt Hume.
In Cleveland today, the president tried to get back on the attack against the Republicans and their so-called contract with America. That document, subscribed to in September by nearly every House GOP candidate, pledges, among other things, a vote on a balanced budget constitutional amendment. Mr. Clinton claims it would inevitably gut government benefits, including Social Security.
We're not talking about minor things. We're talking about huge cuts. You'll still have a bigger deficit. The economy will be weaker, and we'll go right back where we were when we tried this before.
That's been Mr. Clinton's theme for weeks, but over the weekend, Republicans turned the tables after someone leaked them this internal Clinton administration budget memo. It lists as possibilities some of the very cuts the president accuses Republicans of, including Social Security and Medicare.
It's hypocritical for the President of the United States to be out attacking some vague notion that a balanced budget amendment is going to cut Medicare, and then have a memo surface that does cut Medicare.
That memo and the Republican attacks forced the president onto the defensive during a Western campaign swing yesterday.
I do not support cuts in Social Security, and I believe any savings we achieve in the Medicare program should be used to end health care.
Today, though, the administration was still trying to explain that leaked memo, with White House Chief of Staff Panetta saying it was just a catalog of ideas. He was asked who could have been the leaker. The Republicans have said only it was a public-spirited administration official.
Those would not be the words that I would use to describe that individual, and that's probably enough said.
In fact, both sides have long thought that the only way to fix the budget long-term may be cuts in such programs as Social Security and Medicare, but nobody wants to be caught even thinking about such things with an election at hand, and this flap gives you an idea why. Britt Hume, ABC News, the White House.
And a small piece of good news for President Clinton today in the latest poll results. 49% approve of the way he's doing his job, against 48% who disapprove. Not exactly a ringing endorsement, but it's the best he's done since last June. Our polling unit also says that in the overall race for Congress, Republicans have slipped a little from a week ago. A political stunner in New York today. Rudy Giuliani, New York City's first Republican mayor in 24 years, has endorsed a candidate for governor, the Democrat, Mario Cuomo.
I am well aware of the risk that I take as a Republican mayor endorsing a Democratic governor. But I've concluded that the risk is worth taking for the sake of the city of New York and the state of New York. Mario Cuomo will simply be a better governor than George Pataki.
Pataki is giving Cuomo his closest race in 12 years. And one note tonight about politics and money. Having deep pockets helps. Somewhere beyond that driveway is Senator Ted Kennedy's home in Virginia, and it now has some strings attached. Kennedy has put up his home as collateral to take out a $2 million loan to buy more TV commercials.
When Vicki and I were married a few years ago, we took the marriage vows. We made the marriage vows about love and honor, about sickness and in health, and about richer and poorer. She now knows the last one included the house.
Kennedy, in a close race with Republican Mitt Romney, has already raised $6 million for his campaign, double what he spent 6 years ago. When we come back, your money.
A Monday night party.
Bachelorette party? It's like a bachelor party, only for bachelorettes.
But Coach doesn't want Christine to go.
I might have fun.
And she might wind up in jail. An all-new Coach. Then on Blue Skies, Ellie breaks up with her boyfriend and Joel's afraid Russell will make a move.
You do not hear women say the sex is great.
Hear it all the time.
Tonight, starting at 8, 7 Central on ABC.
At the O.J. Simpson trial today, the question once again of all that publicity. The prosecutor asked the judge to dismiss the current pool of prospective jury members on the grounds that the publicity has tainted them. The defense again asked the judge to delay the trial for a year and release Simpson on bail in the meantime. Judge Ito said no to both sides. A new and definitely unflattering picture of the most damaging spy in recent American history. It comes from a report on the Aldrich Ames case by the CIA's Inspector General. Here's ABC's Jackie Judd.
The report paints Ames as an often unsophisticated spy and at best a mediocre employee who flourished because of the CIA's negligence. Several times in 1985, for example, he simply walked out of CIA headquarters with plastic bags filled with classified documents. He reportedly once dropped them off at the Soviet embassy. That was the same year Ames' information led to the deaths of 10 Allied agents. Even before he began spying, Ames was sloppy about security. In 1976, he left a briefcase full of classified documents on a New York City subway. Ames, who once was found drunk in a gutter in Rome, had chronic alcohol problems. Many co-workers told the Inspector General that it was not uncommon for Ames to fall asleep at his desk after drinking his way through lunch. The report says Ames was known as being on the not going anywhere promotion track, so nobody paid much attention while he committed the worst act of espionage in the CIA's history. Jackie Judd, ABC News, Washington.